The Apothecary Diaries often shows us a beautiful rear palace with lavish parties, magnificent pavilions and gardens. Even the women within its walls are stunning, but all of that is a facade. Underneath all that beauty are women consumed by rage. Women who are used, discarded and forgotten by the very empire they helped sustain. So they decide to rewrite their stories, and in doing so, they change the empire forever. Lady Anshi was a pawn used by her father to climb the social hierarchy. She grew from a helpless, terrified little girl to a powerful woman. As a young girl, she had no way of understanding what it was that she was getting into when she stepped forward to comfort the previous emperor who was trembling before her. Sure, she might have been raised to covet the title of empress, but because of her age, she had no way of grasping what that would entail for her, including many attempts on her life and enduring a painful childbirth. But she grew and matured, only to be forgotten. That turned her from naive and hopeful to spiteful and enraged. In her mind, she refused to continue being a spawn. Instead, she became a vengeful survivor. In one act of revenge, she breaks the previous emperor's mind and his reign of terror. He became helpless just like she once was. We also see her grapple with guilt. Her act of vengeance had muddied the waters somehow. It made the previous emperor more than just an evil monster. He was now her victim. Her actions drove him to a slow, quiet and toxic end. That's a heavy burden to carry, and I think that's why she was worried that she had cast him. Lady Anshi's story feels like a clash of emotions, making it difficult to pinpoint what she's actually feeling. But I think that was a deliberate choice because it shows the effects of trauma. The anger, jealousy, hatred, spite, she felt them all. In the end, we see her looking at the painting on the wall. She resolves to forget or at least suppress the bittersweet emotions and only focus on her hatred towards the previous emperor. Lady Anshi's story doesn't end in revenge, but rather she grows into a reformer. She focuses her energy into nurturing her son and even founding the women-led clinic within the rear palace. Symbolically, she's a gate of sorts, keeping the past at bay while at the same time ushering a new era through her son. Even the previous emperor saw that and depicted her as a protector in his painting. Like Lady Anshi, Shenlu and Taihou were also victims of the previous emperor's predatory behavior. Unlike her, they did not rise in ranks or become the mother of the nation. They were forgotten, and what they may have once considered as being favored by the previous emperor was now a prison sentence. They could never leave the palace. When the Empress Dowager founded the clinic, it provided them and many other aging women trapped within the rear palace with a refuge and a purpose. So I remember thinking to myself, why was this clinic so important? Well, apparently most of the older court ladies entered while they were young. The majority of them were personal attendants and maids. Their stations would have afforded them little to no protection with regards to work, especially as they got older. So essentially, they would have likely been forgotten in some corner of the rear palace, neglected by all. We don't get to see much of her character, but the little we do see gives us a glimpse of her character arc. She begins as a helpless captive from a foreign land, and on the surface, she seems like she has accepted her fate. She gives the impression of a calm but somewhat strict woman. But underneath her facade is a sorrow that has morphed into a dark and silent fury. She is a cold and calculated saboteur who understands that a direct and open expression of her true sentiments would fail. So she opts for a more subtle method, her knowledge. We see her as a custodian of a library within the clinic, which implies that she loves knowledge. But the interesting part about her is how she doesn't hoard, but shares that knowledge, encouraging others to borrow and even donate books when possible. She also shares her knowledge through word of mouth, and underneath her seeming generosity, she seeks to destroy. In the shadows, she's sharing information about dangerous everyday ingredients and manipulating the jealousy and ill motives of the younger court ladies. I think what's really interesting about her character is how her moral compass seems to split somehow. We see her show genuine concern for the lower class in the rear palace, even going to the extent of asking Mao Mao to make medicine for a servant girl she's worried about. But on the other hand, she has no concern or respect for the highborn. In her mind, they are all the same, and to make things worse, they are helping keep the imperial bloodline, which she hates, alive. But the thing is, her methods don't discriminate. They harm those she hates and those she doesn't equally. For example, she used Li Hua's servant girl to pass information about the dangers of the scented oils, which Lady Xin intended to use to make an apothecary. To cover it up, she hid them in a shed where she had kept the sick servant girl for weeks as her condition got worse. Shenlu was not the direct cause of that, but her actions had consequences that often affected the lowly people who she hoped to protect or at least show kindness to. Shenlu doesn't just stop with providing dangerous information, she goes a step further. She actively aids the Shi clan rebellion and even covers up Mao Mao's kidnapping. When she is questioned by Jinshi, she chose to take poison rather than answer him, which showed the height of her hatred and defiance. Her simple act does a lot to propel the events that follow, which include the fall of the Shi clan. Her forbidden knowledge put the emperor's children and their mothers' lives at risk on several occasions. Her tale is tragic because the effects of her ordeal with the previous emperor were probably the most brutal. She is separated from her daughter, left with the burden of being seen as a disgrace, while at the same time leaving her trapped in the same place that wounded her. It's no wonder that even in death, her hatred still lingers and haunts. The Apothecary Diaries likes to focus on the sensible and explainable rather than the supernatural. But we see Taiho as a ghost. We learn that she would organize gatherings for the younger servant girls and ladies in waiting, where they would share horror and ghost stories. So I was very surprised when they showed this ghost story and never really explained it in a scientific way, like they do for some of the other ghost stories. But I think her story is to show how the horrors and the effects of the past don't really die away. Taiho's rage outlived her body, and even death couldn't free her from the rear palace. As a ghost, she is brutal. Consider, for example, how she literally tried to end the lives of all the girls in that secret gathering, promising them that they would get 13 horror stories, when in reality she intended for them to be the 13th story. Taiho had a more indirect role when it comes to how she shaped the empire. Her daughter, which was an heir to the throne, grew up and had a daughter called Suirei, and Suirei wreaked all sorts of havoc in the rear palace. All these women had to grapple with the fact that their youth, their hopes and dreams were stolen from them. They had to watch as younger women took their places while they themselves were discarded and forgotten. But they chose to rewrite their stories. Anshi reformed, Shenlu sabotaged, and Taiho wanted. None of them forgave, and the empire was never quite the same again. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy my last video about Frieren and Mao Mao. I look at how both characters navigate emotional distance, hidden grief, and human connection despite living in completely different worlds. I'll link it in the cards and in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!